good to go. This is all of them. This is who we're hearing today. Yeah. Right. And is it action?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Andrew. We're in your hands.
Welcome, Louise and Matt. Cannabis, the gift of life, and cannabis, the gift of the quality of life. Every person in New Zealand has a cannabis story. It's on this note I ask you all, and especially all you as esteemed members of the New Zealand Government's Health Select Committee, to put aside your prejudices, preconceived ideas and notions about cannabis. I'm also asking you to set aside your beliefs and personal circumstances and declare impartiality on the cannabis submission and state on the record whether there is any reason why you cannot be a fair and impartial member of the New Zealand Health Select Committee. This is to allow you to provide wise and just and unbiased counsel to the Labour Government on the Medical Cannabis Amendment Bill 2018. Who am I? I'm a nobody, sitting at the bottom tier of New Zealand's society. Over the last 30 years, I've worked in IT, information technology. 7 years of that was with the IAD in New Zealand. In 1990, I was part of the first technical team that instigated the current IAD software. This is a 28-year-old piece of software, and I was basically, my last role with the IAD was a project manager for the Unisys mainframe upgrades from the large systems to ClearPath NX platform. This would allow the use of the data of TCP/IP, transmission control and internet protocol, and was included on the Unisys mainframe stack. I was delivered this $100 million New Zealand budget on time, on budget, and on quality controls. Later, in the last 20 years, I've been sitting over in the City of London as an IT contractor. I rolled out various things, the 3G rollout, and etc. The last role was with asset management for the largest pension pot in the world called Metropolitan Life, fixed income algorithm. However, just as relevant is my mother's side in New Zealand, we're a third generation of market gardeners, horticulture growing, cut flowers for the New Zealand market. 20 years ago, New Zealand was at the top of 10% of the country's of the world's country's social statistics. Now, 20 years later, New Zealand is at the bottom of the 10% of all the country's social statistics. That's abysmal. My main points are, this bill should be about all the people of New Zealand and about New Zealand's health. The human right to life, liberty and security of person, the human right to fundamental justice, and the human right to self-determination. The human right of life, and more importantly, the quality of life, is for the 500,000 medicinal cannabis patients in New Zealand.
Yeah, 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
The bill is about the palliative care of New Zealand's terminally ill. It's about the very basic human right for us to provide appropriate food and medicine for the very essence of the people of New Zealand's well-being. Why is the bill discriminating against some of the most sick and vulnerable people of New Zealand society? Epilepsy, chemotherapy patients, people with invisible injuries, rugby players' head injuries. The list goes on and on. Happy people do not commit suicide. Do you love the people of New Zealand? If so, support this cannabis bill. My second point is replace this amendment bill with New Zealand Compassionate Use Act, which has been modelled on the 22-year successful use of the United States of America's California's 22-year-old Compassionate Use Act 1996 framework. Overall, the Compassionate Use Act would be to ensure that seriously ill New Zealand have the right to obtain and use cannabis for medical purposes where the medicinal use is deemed appropriate and has been recommended by a doctor, and will determine that the person's health and benefit from the use of cannabis in treatment. To ensure that patients and their primary caregivers obtain and use cannabis for medical purposes under the recommendation of a physician and not subject to criminal prosecution or to any sanction. Recognise the right of the patient and the caregiver to associate collectively or cooperatively to the medical cannabis. In my summation, to provide a positive change on medicinal cannabis for all the people of New Zealand in 2018, my personal aim and the aim of the New Zealand Hemp Cooperative is to provide all the people of New Zealand unfettered access to the medicinal cannabis and medicinal hemp in all its forms, as well as cannabis and hemp dietary supplements and their guises. And in particular, the ability of each and every person in New Zealand cultivation rights for cannabis and hemp plants with a personal environment, in a cooperative environment, or with the inalienable right to extract and appropriate cannabis or hemp products. Grasp the hemp firmly and you will not get stung. Cannabis, the gift of life and quality of life for all New Zealanders. For your information, I'm legally deaf and have had 5 traumatic head injuries and currently seeking this benefit.
Thank you very much, Andrew.
Thank you.
Very good. Good way to start the day. Will you stay or are you...
Yeah,
Sure, you're welcome to stay. So this is Kiritahi? Great, thank you. Okay. Oh, well done. Yes, you are. That's all right. You're here now. Now Matt has made a decision on your behalf. Yes, there'll just be one submission in private, just one request. Thank you. Yeah, they're called MS, anonymous MS. So now. Yeah. Okay, we can go on to Manisha. So we've had one submission, Mr. Lovely Andrew. And essentially, we're waiting for people who have been allocated this time slot to arrive. We're okay. And we've just tried to call Kiritahi, and she's not answering the telephone. Yeah. This group is booked up until 6. Oh, 3. So there's 3 and 3, which is why Matt. So Liz, her flight was delayed. She's from Invercargill, and Anahela was on her way. So we'll end up with 3 on ours and 4 on the other. Yeah. So 2 government in each, and you've got 2 there. So you're with me all day. I hope that's okay. Well, we couldn't, but I don't think you've replaced. Who's your new permanent member? Because, yeah, with Jonathan. Yep. So that's why it's you and me all day.
We're actually waiting on submitters.
Okay, so we haven't got Casey, Donald, Kiritahi's not answering. And what about Manisha? We can call her? Oh, okay, she's 9. Right. Oh, well. Have a cup of coke. Now, that is the whole swad of submissions. Now, yeah, I luckily got mine last night, and I've managed to put mine in order.
Okay, also not in order.
No. I think you were photocopying. Yeah, they were photocopying to the last minute. Yeah. So the other group actually finishes at 4, so you may want to negotiate with your colleagues, but Anahela and I will stay here for the whole time. I'm timing everybody, Nikki. I'm timing everybody because they get 5 minutes. So I'm letting them know if they use it all, that's their choice. Yeah, has to be. We've got too many submissions to manage otherwise. Have a good recess? Yeah, I saw that. Got a bit of publicity from the Greens. Well, it's about diet. It's about discussion, isn't it? Having the conversations. We should, yeah.
This is Joseph Gibbons. He is Chief of Penine Duty, but if you'd like to hear him now, by all means.
Yes, please. Welcome, Joseph.
Well, very good timing.
So we're going to have a bit of fun today.
Oh, okay. That sounds better.
Now let's just find your submission. Now, so thank you and welcome for submitting before, here you are, the Health Select Committee. You have 5 minutes. I am going to time you. It's your 5 minutes, so you choose how you want to spend it. So if you'd like to leave time for us, then that is a decision completely for you. So are you ready? Good to go?
I think so, yep.
All right, I'll start.
So my name is Joseph Gibbons. I am a triple amputee. I'll be having my 9-year anniversary on May 22nd, which I consider my new birthday for the fact that that was the date of my last amputation. I am originally from the States. I've been living in New Zealand since the late 90s, off and on, and I did receive my treatment in the States. I was working for the United States Antarctic program, both down in Antarctica as well as up in the Arctic. And my wife and I used to set up remote field camps, maintain them for the scientists to come in and set up their gear, on and on. I got caught out in a storm, so that's how I lost my limbs due to frostbite. As a result of having treatment over in the States, as an amputee, it's different for all of us, but essentially we have both phantom pain and phantom sensation. Sensation is a positive aspect of it. For example, it helps me walk. I can still visualize my hands and feet. I'm wiggling my fingers at you on my right hand right at this very moment. So it's still hardwired into my brain. The problem with the phantom pain is that alongside of that, you get these massive spasms, almost seizures and whatnot, as a result of the amputations. And again, it is different for every amputee. So having, like I said, my medical work mostly done over in the States, California has had medicinal marijuana for over 20 years. For the first 2 to 3 years, I was being prescribed anti-epilepsy medications for my phantom pain, which they didn't do very much for me. They're not necessarily specifically for phantom pain. So as this carried on, one of my doctors referred me to another doctor who then prescribed medicinal marijuana, or cannabis, shall we say. I have had good results with it. I'm very happy with it. There are many different kinds. It doesn't have to be the psychoactive traits that people would normally consider to be wanting that necessarily help me particularly, although in some cases it does. My pain, mostly what I would like to take it for is just for a good night's sleep. Okay? If I can have a good night's sleep, I can get up the next day and still be a productive, positive citizen, which is something that's very important to people like myself. Now, as the bill that's being put forth at the moment, there are some things that I would like to address and bring up to you in the Select Committee. First off is the concept of terminal illness, as it's stated in the bill at the moment. As my understanding is, it's only for the last 12 months specifically of someone's terminal illness. And I'd like to bring up the point that there are many of us out there who I would consider this to be a terminal condition, meaning I'm not going to die necessarily from this, but it is with me the rest of my life. To make a little joke, my limbs aren't going to grow back, you know. So in that saying, I think that there should be some consideration, or I would hope that you would consider, to broaden the aspect of the bill so that people such as myself or have other medical conditions similar that are lifelong may be able to access something that may actually do them some good as well too.
You will be able to access the medicinal cannabis. The 1 year and the terminal aspect is about prosecution only.
Okay.
So until we have a regime in place and until medicinal cannabis is available, what we've said is we, as a parliament, because for compassionate grounds, will exempt people with a terminal illness from prosecution. So this isn't about who eventually will have access to it. So absolutely, people who their doctor and themselves feel it's a good treatment option will have access to medicinal cannabis when the regime is fully in place.
Okay, that's very good news, actually.
Yeah.
And that brings me up to my second point that I wanted to talk about is the inclusiveness, or what I call inclusiveness. For example, I know many people here in New Zealand that are suffering from terminal cancer, and their partners, because they are so sick, aren't able to go out and, let's say, procure on the black market marijuana. So I do think that, I know you've been considering it, but I want to highlight that point even more, that I think it's very important for example, my wife who's with me here today, to also be shielded from prosecution as a result of, let's say, we're in a vehicle together and I have some, or something along those lines. It's also, when I talk about inclusiveness, is you could imagine one of your loved ones going through a situation like that, and to be able to have access to medicinal cannabis and just seeing the relief on the person that's directly being affected actually affects the whole family. Okay, I think that that's a very important aspect to consider when, and not just the scientific aspects. I'm sure you're going to get plenty of information on that, so I don't need to address that. But I do believe it's very important to consider the health and the well-being of the entire family or whānau when taking this bill into consideration, or any further ones.
Thank you, Joseph. Very good points. That's the end of your submission, but
Is
really
that my
appreciate
5 minutes?
That is your 5
ding,
minutes.
ding, ding.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but very good point, well made.
And thank you for coming. I think we need a cross-section of people coming in to talk about this. It's great to see you.
Well, thank you for
And your
taking
wife
time.
for coming too.
Yes.
Lovely. So you're welcome to stay.
Okay. Thank you very much for listening.
Oh, Tayte Cozen. Tayte, you're good to go. Well done. Prove that turning up early sometimes is a positive thing. So Tayte, you have 5 minutes. It's your 5 minutes. So you can use it all, but if you want to leave us some time for questions, or if you're happy for us to feed in like I just did with Joseph. So when you're ready, let me know and I'm going to push my button.
Yeah, well, you go for it, Louisa.
You're right?
Absolutely fine. I'll try and fit in with you. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you very
Firstly,
much.
my name is Tayte. I'm 46, resident of Upper Hutt. I run a very small e-commerce business, but it's very successful. I'm a local sports coach, and I also work 1 day a week at a local mental health clinic as a volunteer. Okay. Firstly, thank you for allowing me 5 minutes. Really appreciate it. Okay, this bill does not go far enough. We all know that. Okay, it's clear. We need to open this up to GPs for a decision based on their patients' conditions and prescribe licensed patients to purchase cannabis by a certified seller. Okay, and to grow no more than 3 mature cannabis plants. This is where it needs to be expanded. The bill in front of us doesn't go far enough. The law presently allows us to grow 15 kg of tobacco, and we all know how many millions of people die each year through tobacco. 15 kgs a year.
I think you find it's been cut back in the last bill down to 5.
But they can still grow tobacco? Yeah. And we also know that it kills 7 million people worldwide a year. Okay. Seems a bit crazy when we also know that cannabis has never killed anyone from an overdose. Now, the law presently allows people to grow, presently the law says that a dying patient with chronic pain have the choice to stay in pain and die legally, okay, which is quite shameful because at the moment this leads to people becoming criminals because they choose to not be in pain and become and smoke cannabis illegally. Okay, this is where the law is wrong. We know that certain cannabis strains can help certain medical conditions. We also know they can help cancer patients with pain, okay, sleeping, sleep apnea. We also know it can help Crohn's disease. We also know it can help diabetes, depression, anxiety, and other major pain reliefs. That's proven, okay? The human trials have been done for the last 2,000 years, okay? And basically, at the moment, we still allow for rat poison to be sold in our supermarkets, which then ends up on synthetic cannabis, synthetic products. That's killed 25 people in this country. What I'm here about today is that we need to regulate, tax this, and educate our people. I've submitted to you a 6-page document on how it should be regulated. Okay, it's designed to enable people to protect the health and safety of the public. My submission. It is there to remove the product from the gangs. It is there to reduce prison numbers and allow us to free up police time, to spread the wealth and generate a fair market of a heavily regulated market, and to create jobs for our youth in a new industry. The issue we have at the moment is that New Zealand can become a world exporter of medical cannabis. We all know that. So my submission, the 6-page submission which I have submitted with my written submission, is designed to highlight to the government how to set up an independent cannabis body, where this cannabis body is separate from pharmaceutical companies, where we're there to train, license, tax, govern, approve, fine, disqualify, and even recommend to the police criminal prosecution when people breach the regulation. Okay. This will be for growers, researchers, sellers, and employers, all to be subject to these rules and regulations. The regulation needs to happen. The regulation needs to happen the right way so it benefits the mass, not just the wealthy and pharmaceutical companies. Because if we allow for the pharmaceuticals to get their hands on this product, what you will see is that the money will stay overseas. You'll have the money coming into this country, and it will not support the people of this country. Okay? This means it's bad economics for New Zealand. So let's be smart and use this opportunity of a new industry to generate employment and help provide revenue for organisations, just like the $200 million US that was generated in Colorado last year and then transferred to social services like homelessness. Basically, if we allow this to go through the pharmaceutical companies, you're going to be passing over to the gangs an opportunity, once again, to sell what they want, when they want, how they want. Okay? This is why not regulating this product. Because, tell you what, the gangs don't care. They don't give a rat's ass who they sell to and what they sell. And they'll even use it. They'll use cannabis to move people onto a harder substance. People will walk in the door. Sorry, we're out of cannabis. Next thing they get, oh, we've got meth though. We've got synthetic. So the choice is yours, guys. We can either regulate it, educate it, what's ours, I guess, and tax it for the good of society. Okay? Or we can sit back and just let the government make some decisions to pass it over to pharmaceutical companies. I don't know if that's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your submission. And is it Manisha? Okay.
We're moving on, is it? Yeah?
Yeah, we are.
Thank you
for that.
Thank you.
Kia ora, Manisha. How are you?
Kia Oliver. I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, thank you. Now we're just going to turn you up. You're a little bit low on
Okay.
our side. Can you hear me fine?
Oh dear, I can certainly hear you.
Oh, wonderful. So Louisa will, chair of this health subcommittee. I'll let my colleagues introduce themselves, and then you have 5 minutes for your submission, please.
Awesome.
Nikki Wagner, National MP from Christchurch.
So we're in your hands. Thank you, Manisha.
Awesome. So I'm Manisha. I grew up in Monaco in Auckland, and I'm not terminally ill, and I do not smoke cannabis. Can you hear me? Is that okay?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So I'm here today, as I'm sure you're pretty aware, because the Medicinal Cannabis Amendment Bill concerns me in its current form. And first off, I'd like to say that cannabis oil, which is currently what's available to patients that can access cannabis, is prohibitively expensive, and that cannabis itself is a plant, so people should be able to grow it, or if green fairies grow it on their behalf. Or they should be able to access it from pharmacies at a price that they can afford in the form that they would like to use it. In doing so, you'd reduce the power and sources of revenue that gangs have, which I'm sure you can see lots of merit in. And I believe the decision on who should be able to access medicinal cannabis needs to be made on a case-by-case basis by an individual with their medical professional. I'd like to suggest that the current terms are too restrictive, as many people, like my friend with chronic pain, may stand to benefit from this legislation as well. Now, I come from a public health background, and when I think about this legislation, I think it's really important to consider the wider context in which this bill fits. So the Misuse of Drugs Act of 1975 finds its whakapapa in the war on drugs originally waged in America by President Nixon in 1971. This war has been expensive and ineffective and has largely amplified the harm caused by drugs. This is somewhat unsurprising, as numerous officials have come forward saying that the war on drugs was originally waged with the intention of incarcerating people of colour. The consequence of embracing legislation with this intent has been felt in New Zealand, where Māori make up 15% of the general population, but 51% of the prison population. This is in part driven by prosecution for cannabis use. Now, I'm not here to advocate decriminalisation, although I certainly suggest you look into it. But I think it's important to keep in mind that our current drug laws and our justice system are racist. This is important because this bill relies on the police and the justice system to exercise the benefit of the doubt. We already know that communities of colour are more heavily policed. So you have to be reasonably assured that the people that are going to end up in court before a judge having to prove their eligibility will be brown. They will be terminally ill Māori, they will be terminally ill Pacific Islanders, they will be their family and their friends trying to get them relief. These people will bear the personal burden and literal costs of this legislation as it currently stands. From a more practical perspective as well, I think it's really important to note that judges are simply not equipped to identify and discern between medical need. Access to cannabis for pain relief is a health issue and should be addressed within the health system. Now, I propose a few solutions to this. The first of which is to provide patients with a prescription that acts as a permit to grow or source a predefined amount of cannabis. I think it's really important to also allow for these permits to be transferable, so a patient can elect a person to grow on their behalf. Finally, I think it may be useful to have affordable cannabis available at pharmacies, so people that don't want to grow their own don't have to engage with gangs, which is where a lot of the harm that comes with drug use begins. That's effectively my comment on the bill itself. As a final point, I'd like to raise my concerns about the submission process. Because we know in New Zealand that as things currently stand, the possession and use of cannabis is illegal. I think it's important to keep in mind that lots of people that may otherwise be there today speaking are not, because there's no insurance that what they say there will not lead to their incarceration. I think it's really important that when we're considering bills of this nature in the future, we need to include safeguards that mean that when people share things in these forums, they can't be incarcerated for them if they don't cause harm to the people around them. That's effectively it. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Manisha. I just wanted to make the point that parliamentary privilege has been extended to the submissions that we've received.
Oh, yes.
Yes, but I take your point about being proactive about that point, so that people in the community have understood that what we've tried to do is capture the stories of people who this bill is most relevant to. Thank you for reinforcing that. And also reinforcing that the exemption for people who have a terminal illness should be extended to their families. It seems to be a theme already today. So appreciate your input and wish you a good rest of today.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Kia ora.
Bye. Kia ora.
We're just going to roll on with the teleconferences. Thank you. Kia ora. Minute, so we're going to move to Bruce. Kia ora, Bruce. How are you? It's Louisa Wall, Chair of the Health Select Committee.
Hello. Nervous, I think, is probably the term I would have to describe to you.
You're a little bit nervous. Please don't be nervous. I'll allow my colleagues to introduce themselves. And then, Bruce, you have 5 minutes to share with us this morning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Bruce. I'm Nikki Wagner, National MP in Christchurch.
Hi, Nikki. Good morning.
We're in your hands. Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to do the opportunity to speak to the committee this morning. And I've written a few notes here that hopefully I'm on track with. It would be my wish that the committee listen very carefully to what is being put forward today and not just sit on their hands and let this opportunity go by and just pay lip service to the general public and the experts in their fields, then again see the Minister and the government roll over and do nothing to help the needy people, tax-paying citizens of our little country. I feel there's a lot of anger and frustration in the community that have seen and heard these products doing a lot of good for people struggling to overcome the effects of toxins and diseases using every means available. And so that, where do I get to? Available to them, and to fight off the inevitable and, in some cases, their own demise. In my experience, I have seen and heard firsthand of what the cannabinoids can do. It is for this reason alone that I speak to you today. I hope that you, as a committee, can make a recommendation, go forward with a genuine submission for a law change. For all the folk that find themselves in this situation where the GP or medicine as it is today can't help them, the law be changed so that it can be, so they can be helped. I would like to see you as a committee combine to get these products moving in New Zealand for all New Zealanders. Over my years, I have seen and been involved in situations where this little country has punched well above its weight against nations with huge resources, and I feel that given the opportunity, just that, for medical cannabis and the cannabis industry as a whole. Once again, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you to speak and to put my view forward, and I hope the community can persuade the rest of the government to change the law in favour of medical cannabis use. That's me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bruce. I was just noting from your submission that you've been motivated to submit because of your wife's medical condition, and that you had noted that initially there was an option for her to import a CBD product, and that something changed that then didn't allow you to do that. Is that still the case?
Yes, the product that we were getting in was stopped, and the people that we were getting it from weren't prepared to send it to New Zealand for the reasons that it was going to be confiscated or sent back to them. I don't quite know what the procedure for that is.
So when did that happen, please, Bruce?
Probably November-ish. November 16.
Yeah. So your wife did or didn't have a prescription?
No, she had no prescription. We just got it directly from the USA.
Okay. I mean, what we're trying to do with the bill is to create and regulate and manufacture cannabis or medicinal cannabis here in New Zealand. But I do take the point that it must be incredibly frustrating if you've had a product that's been so beneficial that now you can't access, and that there is going to be a period of time before that product is available here in New Zealand. But please know that the intention of the bill is to ensure that the people for whom medicinal cannabis works will be available, but we have to go through a process to guarantee that it's good quality and that it's going to treat people as is intended. But we really appreciate the fact that you've made such a contribution through looking after your wife to our discussions today, and we have heard you. So thank you very much. Any other questions?
No, I just hope that it's not too late happening and I lose my wife before get access to the stuff.
Thank you very much, Bruce.
Okay, bye.
Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.
going to go back to April? Oh, okay. I'm going to go back to the beginning. And Kiritahi probably will try her again. Okay, so Donald. Yep. Yeah, Donald James. Kia ora, how are you, Donald? It's Louisa Wall speaking.
Very good, thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to the committee. I'll concentrate more on personal experiences and a little bit on the effect that the bill may or may not have on the hemp industry, but the Hemp Industries Association has got a chance to talk to that later on.
Lovely. So just to let you know, two of my colleagues are also in the room, Donald. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Yes?
Nikki Wagner, MP from Christchurch.
Good morning, kia ora, Nikki.
So you've got
Good
5
morning,
minutes.
kia ora.
Thank you, Donald. Your time starts now.
Thank you. Look, I presented in 2001, so I'm a little disappointed that I'm appearing again 17 years later. At the time, we thought that we had everything as a go, but that didn't work out. Now, look, I don't mean to be disparaging, but the whole thing seems to be the wrong way round. There seems to be an awful lot of angst going on about discussions in regard to medical cannabis, and the thing that really offends me is the Misuse of Drugs Act. People who are seeking to use it medically are not misusing drugs, and the same thing occurs in the hemp industry. I'm chair of the New Zealand Hemp Industries Association, and we have legislation under the Misuse of Drugs Act. And I put it to the committee that the problem really is the Misuse of Drugs Act. And I'd put it to you that, in my opinion, it should be totally exempt from the Misuse of Drugs Act. Now, I'll tell you why I came to this. I've been sprayed with a poison, and I've got a thing called chronic fatigue syndrome. But when I presented the first time, my ex-wife had been diagnosed with cancer 20 years before. She had it 3 times. The last time she was on morphine, and eventually I insist on saying that we were divorced at the time I presented, and she was no longer with us. However, she was on morphine, and she told her nurse that she felt that zonked out, she couldn't talk to her family, all that sort of thing, and the nurse recommended that if the family could get cannabis, that might help and she could go off the morphine. So, of course, the family went and did that. It wasn't me, it was other members of the family, but they still went and did that, because one of the problems with the bill, as I see it, is that it's focused on the terminally ill. And I told the Select Committee in 2001, and I'll tell you again now, dying people could care less about what the law says. If half a cup of diesel might help them, they would take that. But giving them an exemption, to be honest, look, I know it's with the best of intentions, but it's insulting. These people are dying. They're on a limited timeline, and they're not really that worried about the law. They're more worried about their well-being for what time that they've got left. I think it's a great step, but it's such a tentative step that I think it's going to create more problems than solutions. For instance, CBD. CBD is in the Medicines Act, and it's causing all sorts of problems in the hemp industry. Why is it in the Medicines Act? It's not prescribed for anything that I know of. I can't understand why it's there, and we submit that it should be removed from the Medicines Act until such time as a product is come up with that contains CBD. They've also put an artificial limit of 25 milligrams on hemp foods made from hemp seed. Where did they get that from? What's wrong with naturally occurring? Now, what I'm demonstrating here is that no matter what you do, it will have an effect on the hemp industry. Now, look, I comprehend, or my belief is, that there are 3 types of cannabis. Medical, absolutely the most righteous. Why would anyone argue against that? Well, of course, they probably will. Then there's industrial hemp, and a long way back there's recreational, and they all 3 have their own pluses and minuses and arguments for and against. In this case, it's for medical cannabis, but the reason I bring up industrial hemp is whatever you decide to do may have a detrimental effect to the economic potential of the hemp industry. Now, I've been involved for an awful long time with this, and I very much want to see reasoned and science-based legislation take place. Now, one of the strange things in New Zealand is we seem to... Yes?
Sorry about that, Donald, but that's your 5 minutes. Do you just want to... Yeah, you spoke...
Well, I think the real problem for medicinal cannabis is the Misuse of Drugs Act. Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Bye.
In your hands, Kira. Go back to Casey Lucas. That was our first, yeah. Kia ora, Casey, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing very well, thank you.
Very good. So it's Louisa here, Chair of the South Select Committee. I'll let my 2 colleagues, Nikki and Anahela, introduce themselves.
Hi, Nikki Wagner, National MP from Christchurch.
Hi there, Nikki.
Kia ora.
So,
the second introduction there was a little muddled, but it's lovely to hear you as well.
So Casey, you have 5 minutes, and I'm going to push a button very soon, and there'll be a bit of an alarm at the end of it. So it's your 5 minutes. You can use it how you choose. And the only other thing I wanted to highlight is thank you for being available given that I seemed that you were expecting us to call you a little earlier, so we appreciate that you've adjusted your schedule to participate in this select committee process. So over to you.
Thank you. I'll wait for the beep then.
Yep, good to go.
So we're good to go?
Yes, you are good to go. Thank you.
So I've just got a written statement that I've prepared along the same lines as the submission that I made earlier. And all I really want to say is that one of the hallmarks of a functional healthcare system and a functional republic in general is choice. I have the choice to speak to all of you guys here, and the choice to vote for my representatives, and the choice to live my life freely in New Zealand. I made a choice to live my home country and to move to New Zealand in 2008, and I've also made the choice to stay here permanently. But presently, pain relief lags behind other therapy options in New Zealand when it comes to choice. If I injure myself, like if I sprain my neck, I can go to any number of therapy options which will be funded by APC. I can go to a physio, I can go to acupuncture, I can go to an osteopath, I can go to a chiropractor. All those options are funded by our healthcare system because our health professionals understand that everyone's needs for treatment are different and that what works for one person may not work for everyone. I just want you guys to consider, why not the same for pain relief? In countries and states in the U.S. where they've legalized medical cannabis, patients have the option of pursuing non-opioid sources of pain relief that may work better for them than prescription alternatives. Chronic pain patients like myself often feel backed into a corner, having attempted everything from steroids to opioids to injections to anti-inflammatories, and having one or more options in the arsenal can only benefit patients. The risks and side effects of cannabis certainly don't outweigh the risk of drugs like hydrocodone. We're only improving our healthcare system overall if we allow patients greater choice in what pain therapies they can pursue. For some of us who have tried everything and found almost no pain relief, having one more avenue to pursue can feel like a lifeline. It has a huge effect on your mental health. Please consider expanding this bill to allow non-terminal patients access to the same pain relief as terminal patients. There are many people living in New Zealand with chronic conditions that cause pain, like the one I suffer with every day. Granting them one more option of treatment by legalizing medical cannabis by prescription is not only good medicine, it's the humane thing to do for people who are suffering. That's my entire statement, and thank you so much for listening.
Oh, thank you very much, Casey. Just wanted to let you know that the regime, once in place, will allow anybody who's prescribed medicinal cannabis to have access to it. The exemption that you're talking about in the bill regards prosecution. So there's a specific window until that regime is fully implemented that we, based on compassionate grounds, have decided we won't prosecute people who have a terminal illness. So I just wanted to let you know that actually once the regime is fully in place, anybody who a doctor feels will benefit from medicinal cannabis will have access to it. So.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear.
Yeah. So, Nick, did you have a question? Oh, you're okay. So, yeah, we really appreciate the perspective you've given. Can I ask you a question then, given we have you? Have you had experience with medicinal cannabis, and has it benefited your particular rheumatism?
Well, it's funny. I actually do a little bit of work still back in the U.S., and most commonly I end up in Denver and Seattle, which are, of course, in areas where medical marijuana and then recreational marijuana were legalized. And I gave it a try, and I found it didn't have that much of an effect on me personally. But, I mean, just because it doesn't benefit me personally doesn't mean that I think it shouldn't be available for other people, because medicine is a very individual thing, and what works for one body may not work for another body.
That's great. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your input into our process. Enjoy the rest of your day.
No, you too, guys, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.
All right, cheers.
Bye. April? Okay. we do. That's what this whole bill was about. The exemption is just for people who have a terminal illness from prosecution. If you want to clarify that. Kia ora, April. How are you? This is Louisa Ward, Chair of the Health Select Committee. Before I ask you to make your 5-minute presentation, I'll let my colleagues introduce themselves.
Hello, Nikki.
Okay,
Wagner.
thank you.
Hello, April. It's Nikki Wagner, National MP from Christchurch.
Sorry, I missed that.
Nikki Wagner, National MP from Christchurch.
Oh, thank you.
So, April, we have 5 minutes for your submission. It's your 5 minutes. If you want to use it all, that's up to you. Otherwise, there may be an opportunity for us to answer any questions you may have. So I'll start your 5 minutes now. Thank you.
Can I just be, can you just let me know if I'm not being heard properly? And thank you for my 5 minutes.
Thank you. Loud and clear. We can hear you.
Hello to all, and thank you to the Select Committee for allowing me the chance to have a voice in this matter. The decisions made by this committee in regard to cannabis laws will have an impact on thousands, more likely hundreds of thousands of people everywhere in New Zealand. From the seizures of, excuse me, but it's back. It sounds really bad to me.
We can hear you really clearly, so be
thank
reassured.
you. Right. From the seizures of an epileptic child, the post-traumatic stress affected, the disabled and injured that can be in constant pain, through to the cancer sufferer, we deserve and demand the right to have the freedom of choice of medicine that we can use in and on our bodies. Excuse me, I'm just having trouble moving my computer.
It's all right. I'll pause your time.
Oh, gosh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I have it. We want the legal right to grow and prepare a plant that is God-given cannabis. I am asking for the law changes to be made that will no longer allow the persecution of anyone for the personal growing and use of cannabis, whether for medical or recreational use. There should be more education available on cannabis, like with any other plant, product or with medicine, thus making more informed treatment choices available. There should be no blurring of the lines. Cannabis should be legal for anyone over the age of 18 unless under a medical professional for use on a child under 18. We know cannabis oils and medicines have worked for seizures in children, as has been seen in many tests throughout the world. Allow cannabis to give relief to those who choose this treatment. It is our basic human right to have access to medicine that brings relief and healing, and if cannabis is used for a chosen recreational use, then there should still be no prosecution. We stand by and watch our loved ones being given prescription opiate drugs that are freely given out by doctors, which can often create a dribbling, crippling, and sometimes even immobilise a patient. Without communication, near impossible, and often it's soul-destroying to witness. The drug dependency opiates can create can often cause, among other things, social withdrawal. It has an isolating effect due to the lack of response or interaction from the patient while on opiates. This makes them hard to motivate and socialise with. They lose their connectivity with their loved ones, and depression is easily slipped into, making recovery or even just day-to-day survival even harder. Cannabis in its many forms, including edible and balms, can and do create a more mobile, happier and social well-being. Patients can go from numbed beings to interactive beings, making their quality of life hugely improved. That is what I believe medicine is for, to create a better quality of life. Historically, prohibition has not and does not work. Please make the changes to our laws and allow our prisons to no longer have the beds filled with people that have personal cannabis charges. Cease and desist in the arrest, harassment and incarceration of personal cannabis users. Cannabis works for pain relief and pain management, both for the physical and emotional being. Let the New Zealand people have the freedom to choose their own medicine and their own future. I am asking for law reform, allowing for the freedom of choice to grow and use a plant that has been tested and used worldwide. It is legally used in many countries in the world. Why do we in New Zealand need to lag so far behind? Cannabis is not the demon plant, as depicted over the past decades. It is a plant to use for the pain relief and well-being of people throughout the world. I have heard some of the arguments that would have us believe the re-legalisation of cannabis would lead to havoc because of the unknown element of cannabis use and its effects. Australia, Switzerland, Canada, Argentina, Chile, Denmark, Israel, Jamaica, the Netherlands, and there are more, all countries that have legal cannabis use laws. Surely there is data and research that can be shared to show the results of cannabis use and its properties. We should not be required to run our own cannabis tests and trials in New Zealand before allowing legalisation. Clinical testing has been done already worldwide. What we do need to do is act now and stop any further suffering and hardship due to our restrictive drug laws. Please listen to the submissions given. Make the changes to not just the life of the terminally ill or cancer sufferers that already have the lawful right to the use of cannabis on their deathbed, but vote to change the life of any person from being prosecuted for using a plant. No longer sentence anyone to prison for the personal growing and use of cannabis. Alter the path of the would-be.
April,
Yes.
I'm sorry about this, but we have gone beyond your 5 minutes. But
Okay.
I think everything you've said has been
Please,
reinforced in your...
be brave. Make the changes in our laws so we're no longer
Thank you.
breakers of laws in the eyes. Thank you. Let us heal with cannabis.
That's
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you very much, April. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, could you start here again? Yep. Maybe we can text her and find another time. Kerrilee Turner. Okay. So we're on track, team. We'll have a break. Kia ora, is that Kerrilee Turner?
Possibly.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi, we just need to turn you up a little bit. Kerrilee, it's Louisa Wall here from the Health Select Committee. I'll let my colleagues
Hi.
introduce themselves and then essentially you will have 5 minutes for your submission It's your 5 minutes, but if you want to leave a bit of time for questions, then that's up to you. So, yes.
Okay. Is this anonymous? Do I have to give my name and address and all that kind of stuff?
Your name is available to us. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But I'll let my colleagues introduce themselves, and then I'll start your 5 minutes.
Okay, awesome.
Cool.
Kia ora, Nikki Wagner, Christchurch MP.
Hi. Hi, I can't actually hear you very well, I'm sorry.
Can you hear me, Kerrilee?
I can, yes. Hi.
Oh, very good. Hi. So we'll start your 5 minutes now. So we're in your hands.
Okay. I'm not sure where to start on this, and I'm most likely to make a balls up sooner or later, but I'm very, very much 100% behind what I have to say. A little bit about myself. I'm 48. 3 years ago I was diagnosed with breast cancer that I found myself. The treatment was nasty, and it has left me with an arm that every day I wish I could just chop off due to lymphedema. I take medical marijuana. I make it myself. It's called FICO, which is full extract cannabis oil. I also use the roots as a balm to rub on my arm for pain relief. It's very strong. I've tried the codeine. I've tried morphine. I've tried all of the drugs possible, and I've got quite a cornucopia of them here in my lockbox that have not worked as well as cannabis has, and cannabis has no side effects. I understand it's illegal, but as far as I'm concerned, it is 100% natural and has no side effects whatsoever. There have been no overdoses on the stuff. When people have too much, they usually fall asleep. Whereas codeine, you can die with an overdose. It blocks you up. Marijuana, on the other hand, does nothing like that. My mother is on methadone for 2 botched back surgeries, and I would love to be able to give her some, but she is too scared to be arrested for it. And I really don't think we should be made criminals for trying to help ourselves.
Yeah.
I actually feel a little bit ripped off, to be quite honest with you, because when I was diagnosed with cancer, I wasn't given any other options. I was railroaded into having a biopsy that I actually tried to refuse to have. And within a month, the lump had gone from pinky finger size, pinky finger nail size, to 7 centimetres by the time they took it out. And I mean, there's no need for this sort of stuff. We should have more options, and I truly believe that medical marijuana in its entirety, not just the canna oil, the CBD oil, but the whole lot together, there's a cure there for cancer, and there's a cure there for a lot of diseases, and I believe that. I'm sorry for crying, but it's a very emotional thing for me.
Well, we really appreciate the fact that you've chosen to make a submission and share your story, Kerrilee. The regime that we are trying to implement will make medicinal cannabis available. And the problem we have at the moment is that cannabis is an illegal drug. But as you've highlighted, for people like yourself, people who are dealing with conditions and illnesses that are in pain, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yep.
I mean, the power of your story is actually about how relevant this piece of legislation is. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
I would really like to say that I think it would be a good idea to maybe allow us to grow 1 to 2 plants of our own rather than importing stuff from America that we don't know what's in it. Because I'm quite concerned about the stuff that I put into my body now. Yeah. And because everything these days. I was supposed to be on tamoxifen for 10 years, to block my estrogen levels.
Right.
I took the tamoxifen for just under 3 months, and I couldn't walk. It felt like I had glass in my ankles. So I asked them to remove my ovaries instead, and I still suffer from glass in my left ankle every morning. The glass-like feeling in my ankle every morning. You know, it's just, give us some better options, please, 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 please listen to us.
We are listening to you. I just want to really thank you very much for your contribution. Can I just ask you one question? You must have a few people that are involved in your care now, doctors, maybe nurses. Do they support your use of cannabis?
Yeah, I went to the doctor just recently because I had a bacterial infection and I needed some antibiotics. And the only reason I was able to walk was because of my medical cannabis, and I told the doctor that. And yeah, she didn't have anything to say negatively, but she just sort of smiled and yeah.
Yeah, I think what you're helping to do too is educate our doctors about the efficacy of medicinal cannabis. So that's another positive for us in terms of the process for you making an effort and making a submission. So again, I just want to thank you very much for your contribution, and yeah, wish you a good rest of today.
Thank you very much for listening to me.
Kia ora.
And you guys have a great day too.
We will. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Is Allan Old here? Allan. Kia ora, Allan. We've just seen what we've been through, so thank you very much for making a submission to the Health Select Committee. You do have 5 minutes. We don't have to introduce ourselves, so essentially we've got your submission, but the 5 minutes is yours, and we look forward to engaging with you. Thank you very much. You and your support person. You and your wife. Kia ora.
This is my wife, Deborah. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Allan Old tōku ingoa. Ko Ngāi Tahu te iwi. Originally from the South Island, but grew up in Manaroa and Papakura for most of our lives.
There you are, both of us.
So, familiar with the concept of cannabis recreationally. I've supported the bill. What I want to talk to you about is the compassionate component of the bill. I heard you say about the regime being implemented, and that is wonderful. And I'd like to think that the compassionate bill giving people with less than 12 months to live is because you'll have the regime in place in 12 months. But I don't think that that is actually true. So, Deborah rang 300 people who were on the Medicinal Cannabis Awareness Database. I can't do it because I'm effectively deaf. I haven't been able to hear the voice conversations. Of those 300 people, none of them would get relief under the statutory defence because none of them were terminally ill. No. One woman would do in 6 months because she's possibly got 18 months to live if the doctors are any good at guessing how long they're going to live. So I think that the compassionate component doesn't work. The Cambridge English Dictionary says a strong feeling, compassion is a strong feeling of sympathy for the suffering and bad luck of others and a wish to help them. So I don't think the compassionate component does this. What I think needs to happen is you need to extend it to debilitating conditions, even if they're doctor certified, which is fine. And that would include my son then. He's not included at the moment. But he's not capable of buying or preparing, so I still have no defence, or we have no defence. So you need to extend that further. It needs to extend it to caregivers to possess, because we have to have it and hold it and prepare it for him. Now, then it would be okay for possession, but then I still need to engage with criminals in its immediate period. By having this saying it's okay to have it, it's like saying it's okay to have a gun, but nobody's allowed to manufacture them or sell them. So what do? I have to make my own. Okay? Otherwise, I lead a crime-free life. I worked in business, and now I have to engage with people that I didn't know before. Wouldn't have been a problem in South Auckland. I know a lot of people there. Like two phone calls, I could probably get enough cannabis for a long time. So that really you need to remove that criminal element. You need to allow people to grow their own if they've met the qualifying condition. Okay? And the upside of that, no interaction with illegal growers or sellers. You get your own quality control. You know you're not getting synthetics added to it and Ajax and things put in. You can choose your indica and your sativa for whether you want to be awake or go to sleep. You can get different strains for the right jobs. The downside of that for the community, possibly, according to a judge last week, he said that you might be tempted to sell if you have a surplus. Actually, I can grow tobacco and I can produce my own alcohol, and if I had a surplus, I might be tempted to sell. This person had 6 plants, and they were grown for medicinal use, and they got prosecuted, and that was in March. So, if I had a surplus, I might be tempted to gift it, maybe, but you already have rules around that for all the other things, so what I can't do, you can limit the volume, so you could expand the scope to severe and debilitating conditions and limit it to the current laws anyway.
Can I make a point there? You're right about an ability to expand scope, because we've sought some advice from the clerk. We do have an issue about grow your own, because in fact that was in Chloe Swarbrick's bill that the government, that the Parliament, I should say, on a conscience vote, voted down. So just wanted to make those points. And obviously,
I'm aware that what I have proposed was the better of the two bills, but it didn't get through.
Yeah,
and so I'm also aware that this is only a select committee and you have to make recommendations. So where you're quite happily saying to these people on the phone that the new regime will allow this and that and the other, it may not ever actually get that far.
Well, I guess the whole framework of the bill is to create a regime, and we've set ourselves, you're right, a 2-year goal. I think the point that you've made, though, around the compassionate time frame for somebody who has a terminal illness, if we know that it won't be ready for 2 years, why are we only limiting it to 1? So take that on board.
I understand that each of that I laid that out in small steps, and you probably won't get to the last step of allowing people to grow, but that would certainly make it different. In the interim, I will probably have to continue to engage with people I wouldn't normally engage with.
And then you're obviously aware that a referendum has been negotiated as part of the agreement with the Green Party. So before or at the next election, we get to choose as a country if we want to decriminalise cannabis.
Yeah, I know. So that makes it even more ridiculous not to allow at least severe and debilitating conditions in the interim, because you're going to go to full use probably if all the people get to vote on it in 2 to 3 years' time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your submission very much. Is Victoria?
No,
that's it. Sorry. Thank you. We have Victoria. Is it Catherwood? Oh, hey, Victoria. Kia ora. You're going to round off our morning for us. So you've seen the process. You have 5 minutes. Yeah.
Cool. I'm going to...
But when you're ready, let me know and I'll push my little button.
Okay, sure. Okay, ready. Thanks. Kia ora koutou. My name is Victoria Catherwood, and I am a training intern or a training doctor. I'm training currently with the University of Otago Christchurch School of Medicine at the Christchurch Hospital. Thanks for letting me have some time off uni today. I just want to start by asking you kindly to close your eyes and soften your gaze with me. Imagine if you wake up one morning feeling something's not quite right. Suddenly, over the next few days, confusion develops along with slurred words. Crippling double vision and vomiting follow. You know something isn't right, so you visit your GP for some basic tests. Many weeks go by and there is no answer, but suddenly you have a call from your doctor who urgently wants to discuss your brain scans. Imagine sitting there being told that you have a brain tumour. Surgery is the only option, plus or minus radiation. And the evidence says that in 5 years' time, you have a 40% chance of being alive. Imagine also if you have 14 years of biochemistry history and 6 years of medical school training. Stop and imagine for a while if you can do the research, if you find the evidence that there are pharmaceutically conducted randomised control trials that show that your very tumour could be reduced with cannabis by up to 50%. How would you feel if this medicine was cheap and easy to get but illegal? Or extraordinarily expensive and inaccessible, however legal? Now open your eyes, come back to the room. This is my story and this is my struggle. My medical treatment is currently being withheld from me. I want to ask you, is the bill that you're going to create guided by the principles of fairness, safety and quality and compassion? To help you understand where I'm coming from, I'm going to give you a bit of background about my academic history. So I've got a Bachelor of Science in Biochemistry and Psychology. I've got a graduate diploma in genetics. I've got a master's degree in Science of Cell Biology and Molecular Biology, where I looked at the therapeutic applications of so-called drugs of abuse or illegal substances. I'm a co-primary caregiver for my mum, who has terminal breast cancer that's now in her lungs, her liver and her bones. I've lived with her for 3 years and I've witnessed huge benefits from her pain, nausea, vomiting, appetite, sleep and overall well-being from using cannabis as a medicine on top of her conventional drugs. I felt so compelled to educate the medical industry about science, the ethics and the law of cannabis in New Zealand. I created a documentary last year. It's called Mum, Cannabis and Me, and it was released in September, and it's been shown in conferences internationally, and it's already being shown in the medical school curriculum. In January, February, I spent 5 weeks over in California working underneath cannabis doctors, investigating how they prescribe and recommend cannabis as a medicine for a huge variety of conditions and symptoms. I started a group at medical school called Medical Students for the Safe Use of Medical Cannabis. We currently have 160 members. I'm also on the committee of the Australasian Integrative Medicine Association. I'd like to point out the problems with this bill. They are primarily around terminology and information. Terminology is often used incorrectly in this bill. For example, CBD says that it's not, in the bill it says it's non-psychoactive. This is actually incorrect because the evidence does say that actually it's anti-anxiety and it's antidepressant. Therefore it has an effect on the psyche, therefore it is psychoactive. Much the same, coffee has an anxiety-provoking effect too, and thus is also psychoactive. The correct terminology perhaps would be psychotropic if you're talking about the associated high with THC. Proper terminology also would be beneficial around the terminology of terminal. There is evidence, like I said before, that cannabis in low doses can extend life in some cancer patients by up to 50%. So defining terminal around providing a medicine that very much itself extends life becomes extremely difficult. Finally, the terminology I'd like to point out is that medical cannabis is very different to medicinal cannabis. Another problem is information. Cannabis is hemp, is marijuana. It's the same plant, it's a vegetable. It's scientifically factual. There is no botanical cutoff for hemp or cannabis. It's cannabis sativa, capital L. If you want to know more, Cannabinomics is a really good book by Christopher Fitchner. There are many chemicals within cannabis. THC and CBD were the two that kind of get chucked around a whole lot. But the biochemists who have been studying this plant for many years, since they isolated and described it, talk repeatedly about an entourage effect. You need the whole plant. Harms that doctors constantly talk about are psychosis, brain damage, pregnancy harms, and child mutating. It could be like a child mutating drug like thalidomide if we don't watch out. If you look at the evidence, these can all be outlawed. They're cherry picking.
Concluding comments.
I'd just like to summarise that the endocannabinoid system is the largest system within the human body. I'd like you to hopefully have listened to some of the things that I've said today and perhaps watch my film if you want to get more information. I'm one of the most qualified people in New Zealand currently that has evidence on clinical and experience with clinical use of cannabis as a medicine. I'm happy to help you if you have any questions, but I do urge you, please be compassionate.
Thank you very much, Victoria. Appreciate that. Okay. So team, we're breaking now, and we will clear the room. We will resume probably at 10:25.